This is not one of my typical musical analysis videos. It might look like it's a drama video, but it's more of an analysis of drama. I want to do my part to contribute to this conversation, maybe answer some questions for people, or at least propose some questions about why is it that to those of us who are paying attention, many of us see a similarity between the MAGA movement and Drake. And more specifically, Drake and the people who take his ideological side in this war for the soul of hip-hop that has been the Kendrick and Drake beef. What is that similarity? Why and how can we say that Trump, Drake, and people who support Drake, let's take DJ Academics as a representative of that, are all kind of doing the same thing with wildly different levels of power and influence? Now, there's a lot of similarities between these sort of three forces in our society, but I want to really focus on one. Because I've been looking around and I've been noticing, and I think that it's pretty clear to see, there is this attack that distracts. There's a specific kind of distraction that's going on right now. And it's very tied into a psychological term called the narcissistic flip, where the person who is the abuser manages to flip things in the conversation and make it that they are the victim, okay? And that's the kind of thing that keeps happening at every single level that we're here. So what we're seeing is, instead of having the conversations we need to have, we arrive at these conversations. You know, the problem with American presidents having too much power and abusing that power is very real. And the person we need to be looking out at, the person we really need to be looking for is Barack Obama. There is a rapper who's very bad to women, and we really need to make sure that he's called to account. His name is Kendrick Lamar. There's a serious problem with hip-hop media, and it's Anthony Fantano. All right? This is the kind of flipping, the change, the distraction, that attacks that I'm talking about. So I'm going to be doing a pretty long video here. Here's the short version for those of you who don't have time for all this mess. Don't let the ghouls shift the focus away from them. We need to stop letting bad faith actors reframe the debate. It's too easy. We're too easy. We're too easy on this side to be distracted and say, look, our ally is showing imperfect allyship. Get him! When what we need to be doing is focusing on getting more allies, not less allies, okay? Now listen, this is all part of this weird thing, which when our society, when we look back at this time, the term I use is COVID-16. 2016 is the year that our civilization lost its battle with the internet, okay? Once the attention economy took over, all of a sudden, every single thing in our culture became a part of the culture war, but the definition of the culture war right now is just every single thing in the culture, in human culture, can be divided into an us versus them. Trump, Clinton, Star Wars, The Last Jedi, Sydney Sweeney's jeans, Drake, Kendrick, Tiger King, okay? There's this whole kind of thing where somehow we keep repeating the same form of culture war, and it keeps getting bigger and bigger, and this constellation of beliefs keeps spreading out to every single aspect of our life. Now, in particular, I find myself on the side that is more progressive, that is more egalitarian, and that is more collectivist. Okay? And that's the kindest way to put it, is that the people who I see to be on the other side of this ideological divide are against progress, against equality, and against collectivism. All right? But that's the basic idea. Now, there's a sad truth to all of this, and I've been hinting at it by calling it a disease, okay? If you've never read, or if you don't know of this person, okay, the book is called Calling In, How to Start Making Change with Those You'd Rather Cancel. It's written by Loretta J. Ross, who is an absolute treasure. My daughter had to read this book for college. It was like her summer reading, and she told me about it, and I said, oh my God, I need to make a video about that. She explains the alternative to calling out as calling in. And she's able to put in that book very well what's been happening to our civilization over the past 10 years. As she says, over the past decade, call-out culture has merged with the attention economy. True. Tribalism is tribalism. True. So even though this video is dedicated to describing what the other tribe is doing, it's still tribalism. She refers to it as the cult of unforgivability. Okay? So I agree with a lot of this book, and I'm going to be bringing it back later. And it's a very important book to read. Frankly, I think if I could get everybody who owns a computer to read any one book, it would be this book, because it outlines so clearly how we are being played. The problem is, even though we're all being played in the same way, that doesn't mean that we're the same. It's not. It is a false equivalency. MSNBC and Fox News do the same thing. They both prey on the divide. They both sell advertising. They both try to get old people to be scared and buy gold and life insurance. Okay, that they do the same thing. But they don't do the same thing, okay? One does promote racism and fascism, and the other doesn't. So what gets tricky is you get tempted to take a sort of centrist position when you see the way that we're all being played. I see the way that we're played. I see how white supremacy works. I see how patriarchy works. I see how all these things work and how all this kind of infighting just serves the people in power. And so you kind of want to say the only way to win is not to play, but that comes from a position of centrist privilege, okay? So I think my hope with this video is that I can, I don't know, help to point out these similarities, help to sort of see it in this larger context, that maybe some people who are watching what's happening in our civilization are sort of like, that's weird. This is all part of that same general constellation of beliefs that goes into this never-ending culture war of COVID-16. Now, if you want a general take on why, so I'm going to be specific. I'm just going to be talking about the distractions that attraction, right? The attacking distractions, right? I'm just going to be talking about that. If you want a more general take on Drake stands, and MAGA, I suggest you watch some of Justin Hunt's work. He's done good work there. Read My Soul did a video about it particularly. The video I'm going to really suggest you see is by Absa Effin Lutley. She has a video reacting to Read My Soul's video, and in it she does I don't know. I think it's the best definition of what MAGA is. You know, like beyond just like supporting Trump, like the actual ideological underpinnings. It's really great work. So I highly, highly suggest you go watch that. I mean, I'll kind of summarize in general the traits of MAGA that we're talking about here. You know, I'm focusing on the negative traits, okay? That lack of accountability, tacit and sometimes explicit support of systemic racism, xenophobia, sexism, manosphere adjacent, if not in the manosphere, crypto scam adjacent, if not participating in crypto scams. There's a lot of what I call gambling groomers, okay? There's a lot of gambling grooming going around, okay? That's where people try to groom young men to become gamblers, teenagers and adolescents, you know. And just sort of a general weird permissiveness towards grooming itself. Okay? But really it's the lack of accountability that I would say is there the most. But what I want to do is talk about this narcissistic flip. The way that these MAGA feeling forces employ the narcissistic flip to go from aggressor to victim while aggressively trying to victimize more. There is a way of understanding this, the mechanism. There's an acronym. It's very nice. It's called Darvo. Okay, I'm going to say it. And maybe while I say it, like you'll start to get where I'm going with this. You'll start to smell what I'm cooking. Okay? Deny. It's a three steps to Darvo. It's 5 letters, but 3 steps. Deny, attack, reverse, victim, and offender. Deny, attack, reverse, victim, and offender. That's the goal. That is the mechanism that goes underneath this narcissistic flip, and it's the Darvo that I am seeing everywhere. Now, the definition of Darvo that I found comes from domesticshelters.org. Because I don't know, I wanted to say that exists. And if you are experiencing this in your life, maybe they can help you. Okay? The term itself was originally coined by Jennifer Freyd, Freyd. And I'm going to sort of explain how Trump, Drake, and the Drake stans use this technique. A trigger warning here, I am going to replace the word survivor with accuser, but still, it's pretty harrowing. It's when you think about this in real life. I have been a victim of this. Okay, I've been a victim of this actually quite a bit. Like, truly, it's terrible. It's a terrible, terrible, terrible thing to be a victim of. So if you are in an abusive relationship, or if you have been in an abusive relationship, just know this might be upsetting, because you might see something that makes you say, damn. Darvo, deny. Here I am quoting from domesticshelters.org, replacing the word victim with accuser. The abuser vehemently denies the accuser's account of what happened. This can involve gaslighting the accuser to make the accuser doubt their memory of events. The accuser may begin to question whether or not they are blowing it out of proportion, as the accuser continues to minimize what they remember happening. Let's take this at all three levels. Okay? When it comes to Trump, it's been a weird thing, right? Because his overt racism and xenophobia and his all-out attack on the Constitution and democracy, for whatever reason, that doesn't really upset enough people. It doesn't upset enough people to actually make any meaningful change. There's only been one thing that appears to have the potential to actually motivate people to actually turn on him and see what he's doing. Even though he denies everything, he denies many things that are just in black and white in front of your face. I mean, that's his tactic. A lot of politicians do it. He does it more overtly than other people. But what interests me the most is this Epstein question, this Epstein angle, because this is the thing that actually threatened his power. Everything else, nothing else threatened his power. Abusing women didn't threaten his power. Being xenophobic, racist, all stuff, that didn't threaten his power. But you see, he was partly elected by the people who felt that he was going to save them from what they perceive of as the elites who are abusing young people, who are hurting children. This is a major, major issue amongst his followers. You were the chosen one, Donnie. You are supposed to expose the diddlers, not become one. But he doesn't do that. He doesn't say, oh, I was friends with this person. Oh, I bear responsibility for that. I didn't know, but I should have known. Anything like that. He just says, I don't know. I can't draw. I can't write. I wasn't that guy, pal. I don't really know him. I didn't really know him. I didn't really hang out with him. Never been on a ship. I met him a few times. I don't know. I met him twice. I met him 5 times, 1,000 times. It doesn't really matter what it is. That's the thing. That's the denial. That's the accusation that is the one that I think is most important, because while he is attacking the country, the people he's really abusing are the people who love him, right? I would say that we are, as a country, suffering through his presidency. I would say that it's an attack on us, but it's not quite that same question of sort of trust and faith that's being abused. On the Drake side, what is he denying? Well, he's denying that he lost the battle. He is. Through these lawsuits, he's trying to make it seem as though the books were cooked, and that he isn't bothered. And then as a part of that, also he's not bad to women, and he's not inappropriate with underage women, okay? Or underage girls, for that matter, right? That's what he's trying to do. Now, what is it that the academics and the other people who he represent, what is it that they are doing? Well, in general, we're talking about the side of hip-hop commentary that is generally considered to be against hip-hop and often anti-black, okay? Generally profiting off of Black death and conflict more than celebrating Black art and creativity, okay? That's the general issue with that side of hip-hop criticism, okay? Now, specifically, he has been shown to be, the only word you can use is grooming a young man on stream and talking about sexual things in a very explicit way with an underage kid, knowing they're underage. He has bragged about sleeping with 17-year-olds, okay? So, I mean, that's like a specific thing. All right, but it interests me more the way that he represents this anti-hip-hop, the general belief by supporting Drake. And again, I'd like to go back to the olden days where we can just dislike Drake and what he does, and that's it. It doesn't have to be an ideological battle, but it is. We're here now. It's against hip-hop as a culture and for hip-hop as a pure commodity. It is therefore for the dumbing down of the art form, therefore against lyricism and political meaning in hip-hop. And it's not a coincidence that there's a whole lot of people in that space saying similar things. Not everybody who supports Drake supports all these things I'm talking about. But the most powerful people in that space, they tend to say that. I consume, buddy. All right. So that's deny. Attack. The abuser, again, going back to domesticshelters.org's definition. If by the way, you need help, go to domesticshelters.org. They might be able to help you find help. Deny, attack. The abuser shifts the focus to the accuser's credibility. And whether or not others, including law enforcement, should believe them. This could include bringing up past indiscretions, real or fabricated, in the accuser's past, questioning the accuser's mental health, accusing the accuser of abusing drugs or alcohol, or asserting the accuser is abusive when really the accuser was reacting to the abuse being inflicted. This is the attack that distracts. This is the shift towards the accountability of the person who is trying to call for accountability. Now with Trump, this is obviously clear. This is everywhere. This is his primary, this is what he learned from a young man from Roger Stone? Oh, no, who's the guy? Anyways, he's had a lot of advisors who have told him the only defense is offense, and not general offense, cruel and vicious, relentless offense. Never say you're sorry, never take accountability. That's his literal policy. That's his literal platform. And while I could talk about 1,000 things that he has denied and then attacked, this Epstein thing is what interests me the most. Because what did he do when he was really caught red-handed saying that he is going to continue the cover-up? Whatever the cover-up is, he is going to continue it. I'm not saying I know where he is on the list or isn't on the list. I'm saying this is not conspiratorial. There is a cover-up of something. Of something. I don't know what, of something. And he came in front of his followers and said, I'm going to keep covering up the thing I said I would uncover. Despite all the broken lies, all the broken promises and all the lies, that's what got them. So what did he do? He attacked his own supporters. He started saying anyone who cares about Epstein is dumb and stupid, and it was in the past and no one cares about it. He literally called anybody who cares about Epstein stupid. He literally did that. He flipped it around on them. And then he understood, what can I possibly do? And so that was the point where he just, in a bald-faced way, started accusing Obama of treason, started literally trumping up some accusations about a president a couple presidents ago. 2016, was that when he left office? That long ago, he took that and flipped it around so that all of a sudden he was trying his hardest to change the topic of conversation, and he succeeded. He succeeded in anybody talking about whether or not Obama should be thrown in jail for treason. He succeeded in talking about it. He succeeded in changing the conversation for minutes, for hours. It doesn't matter. It all works in his advantage because you have to deny and then attack. What about Drake? What's his attack? That's what the lawsuit is. The lawsuit is an attack. Kendrick buys streams. He didn't really win the battle. It's all bots. Kendrick beats women? See, this is why I want to do this video. That's what's come into this just over the last week. That it's not just that Drake is trying to say that he won the battle. He is trying to use the law system. He's trying to use the legal system to prove that Kendrick is not the father of his own children and that he has abused the mother of his children. That's what the lawsuit is. It's an attack. It's an attack. It is an attack in this context of Darvo. Deny, attack. it's an attack on hip-hop itself. It's actually, by trying to limit the free speech of rappers, what they can and cannot do, it is an actual attack on the art form. He feels as though it's not just Kendrick that attacked him, it is hip-hop culture in general, and he is denying and attacking back, and making it seem as though it is hip-hop itself that's wrong, not him. And the fact that he called in Kendrick's kids, to me, is like the most unforgivable thing, but whatever. If you've ever gone through a divorce and you felt what it's like to take children to a courthouse, you would know that anybody who would do that for any reason that is not absolutely necessary, that's just diabolical. Anyways. So then what about the Drake stans? What about sort of their front in this war? Okay? Now, obviously, there's this kind of back and forth about, like, who won, who lost. Sorry, there's a robin down there who... I have a nest right underneath the deck, and so it's just going to sit there and tell me to leave for a while. Don't worry about it. Maybe it's an academics fan. So academics, as a representative of the Drake stan, the sort of group of what I consider to be anti-hip-hop, hip-hop commentators, okay? What did he do? Well, he attacked Anthony Fantano for saying some bad things. Okay, and I'll talk about those bad things. And, by extension, other Drake stans joined in this battle and saying that everybody who does not explicitly exile Anthony Fantano and call him a racist is supporting the things that he said. Okay? Briefly, if you're not familiar with what it was, this is a recent call out of Anthony Fantano. I think it needs to be put in proper context. So what did he do? He used the N-word while quoting others. Okay? That's what he did. Without commentary, that is what happened. Okay? He participated in a group chat in which people laughed after saying the name Trayvon Martin. Okay? The actual nature of that podcast itself is fairly unclear who's laughing at what, but still, that is what happened. It's not good. Okay? Every couple of years since this happened, this all happened 10 years ago, he has had to come out and make a defense. Now, first of all, I hope this doesn't need to be said, but I'll just say it in case you think I don't know. It's not up to me. It's not up to me whether or not what he did is okay or not. Okay? This is not my gate to keep. This is not my culture to protect. As I say all the time, I am not a part of hip-hop culture any more than I am a part of 17th century France, okay? It is something that I study. I enjoy being in community with people who are in hip-hop culture. I really enjoy studying it. I enjoy talking about it. I enjoy celebrating it. I enjoy protecting, protecting it in any way that I can. But I don't pretend, with my life experience, where I come from, what I've lived, that I'm a part of it, okay? So it's not mine to protect. All right, my name is Paul, and this is between y'all, okay? I say all the time, I am not looking for an invite to the cookout, and if I get one, I'm going to respectfully decline, okay? We can hang out later. You call me after the cookout, we'll hang out. I'm going to drive by the cookout, and I'll honk, and I'll give you a wave, and you can wave back. I'm going to go watch some baseball and eat some French cheese with my friends, okay? That's what I'm going to do, all right? Anyways, so it's not up to me to decide whether or not what he did is forgivable. But I will say this. I think a good faith assessment of Anthony Fantano and hip-hop, I believe, would say that he has given more than he has taken. I believe one would say that he has been extremely respectful in centering black voices, in being a voice for black causes, for hip-hop. I'm not saying he's owed anything, and neither am I. I'm not saying that, okay? But I'm just saying I think a reasonable assessment of his place in hip-hop culture would not place him in the bad guys, okay? Now, that being said, it's not up for me to decide. I've watched many people who I respect a lot come out and say that he should not be forgiven. Deleted, Wayno, okay? People who I think are very good, interesting people, and their voice is meaningful and mine is not in this debate. Communities get to protect themselves and individuals get to decide what they can accept. But I just want to make this video to remind us all the reason that we're talking about it. We're talking about it for the same reason that the New York Times has had to ask the question, should Obama be prosecuted for abusing power? Get the f out of here. Did Kendrick beat Whitney in Las Vegas? Get the fuck out of here. Who's framing this debate? Who is telling us to study this? This is designed and directed by the red right hand of DJ Academics. That's what this was. And it's working. That's why I'm upset, okay? And why I'm upset is that we're so easily played, especially on the left, okay? Because that's fundamentally what this breaks down. It breaks down to left and right. All those things I talked about, everything breaks down to left and right. Left and right, left and right, left and right. The way to destroy leftists is to convince one leftist to tell other leftists that one leftist is not left enough. That's the greatest gift. This can't be done to the right. It can't be done. It doesn't work that way. I can't point out somebody on the other side and say they're not conservative enough and then they get kicked out. They know how to actually sort of protect themselves from that. We get sucked in because way too much of our time is spent trying to make sure that people pass some kind of purity test. And also, let's not get it twisted. There is a general desire to undermine those who perceive of themselves as protecting hip-hop culture. This is definitely not limited to the participants on Culture United, but I have seen that being used as an example of the problem with hip-hop culture. Okay? So that's the issue. I'm not saying Fantano should not be called to account, and I am not saying what anyone should say about what he said. I am going to say we're being played by bad faith actors. And the idea that this is similar in any way to the YouTuber What's the Dirt is just plain laughable. You know, he's somebody who has come out and said, if I did this, people would come after me. And he's right, except that that's the whole difference. This is that false equivalency. Not all white YouTube commentators on hip-hop are the same. They don't all have the same bona fides, okay? And that's what's crazy. You know, that's why it's wild. You start seeing these things happening. You start seeing people like What's the Dirt posting Twitter threads about Kendrick getting arrested in Las Vegas in a very sort of shady way that just feels very fake and wrong. And he's saying, "Oh, I'm not saying this is true. I'm just posting it." It's like, why is he doing this? Why is this the focus? Why is this all together in here? And I want to answer the question because I've seen it asked. You know, why isn't everybody denouncing Fantano? That is the way that they are trying to divide the left side of hip-hop commentary. And hip-hop is fundamentally kind of a leftist art because even though it values money greatly and individualism, still it started off as collectivism, and it's primarily about the dignity of people who have been denied dignity. Okay? Anyways. Why is it that not everyone is denouncing Fantano? Okay, so maybe they're self-interested. You know, Fantano's got power, and maybe they don't want to piss off a very powerful person. Maybe. I don't think so, but that's a possibility. Maybe they're loyal. Fantano's a nice guy. I met him. Nice guy. I'm not saying that he could never say anything that would make me turn on him, okay? But, like, you know, maybe they're loyal. Or maybe they think he's okay. Even if he was wrong in the past, he's okay. And so they're kind of stuck because it's like, I don't want to say it's okay what he did in the past, but at the same time, I don't want to pretend like he is the enemy. Maybe they just don't want DJ Academics to choose what they talk about. And that's part of the insanity of the moment that we're living in, or the difficulty of the moment that we're living in which we have talk about it. There's this belief that if you can get someone to talk about something, you have done something good. Okay, I see this all the time, okay? As an example, I have declared that what's happening in Gaza is a genocide. I've said it multiple times on this channel. I also am uncomfortable with a lot of the ways that this event is being talked about, so I try not to talk about it because I'm very uncomfortable studying history, seeing the ways that these things tend to go. So I will just say that as the simplest possible thing. That's the thing I feel most comfortable saying, and I will still get comments very frequently saying, why don't you talk about it? You're a Zionist, aren't you? Aren't you? Aren't you? Okay? Why are we letting this happen? Why are we letting this happen? Okay? Why are we letting people frame the debate? Why do we need to keep the pressure so hard all the time to say something? And I'll tell you why. It's because FD Signifier will tell you this. Online activism is nothing. It does nothing. You have to touch grass if you actually want to make a change. People feel like they are making a change when they say something. They're not. But if they can find somebody who is not saying something the way that they're saying something, and they can bully that person into being exiled or into saying the thing they want to say, they think that those words have a magical ability. Okay? That's the issue. That's COVID-16, okay? That's what's happened to our civilization. That's how we're losing our battle to the internet. To that nature, I did want to spend one more second while discussing this Fantano issue to talk about calling in versus calling out, this excellent book by Loretta Ross. Okay, I just going to quote some things from her book here. I actually went through here with my daughter. I asked my daughter, I said, could you take some notes to what might help me with this video? And she wrote down a bunch of notes for me, so that's good. She's going to do well in college. Quoting Loretta Ross. It is safer and easier to attack potential allies because of their proximity, rather than to confront actual threats. As you kids would say, bars. Sorry, I gotta check my baby monitor. Okay, my 3-year-old is rolling around. My 1-year-old is sleeping. I'm good. It is not an invitation to growth, but an expectation that you have already grown. We are being ruled by the fear of appearing impure. This is where we get better. Okay, listen to this stuff right here. Quote, social media amplifies human emotions, positive or negative, because its economic models are designed to capture our attention through outrage for profit. And while technology has made rapid leaps, our emotions have not. She also talks about the 75 and 90%. I believe those are the percentages. That what happens is, and especially in leftist forums, where we're constantly trying to call out people, we're constantly trying to call them out. I don't want to use the term cancel, because that's a term that's just been appropriated, but trying to call out people. We call out people who are 90% the way there, 90% towards the side of equality and collectivism. We find that 10%, and then we kick them out, as opposed to focusing on people who might be 75% of the way there and bringing them over, okay? We're spending a lot more time kicking people out than bringing people over. And there's no better example than that, I think, than what's happening right now with this attempt. And again, as far as I know, Fantano doesn't care. I mean, I'm sure he cares, but as far as I can tell, Fantano's done this enough times that he's just, just going through it, right? But I think it's an important moment. I do. I think it's an important moment because it hurts me to see how effective it was. And all this is made worse by the fact that we have an attack on critical thinking that's been going on since, I don't know, No Child Left Behind for a long time. America has long been a sort of anti-intellectual bastion, right? It's just a kind of a nature of our country. But, it is true that, when we get into these little factions, we tend to lose our ability to critically think. I've been a victim of this. I made a video that I've since erased where I criticized Kendrick Lamar for doing a Gatorade commercial, okay? And, the reaction to it was so negative. I got called all sorts of names. I got called racist because it's not okay for a white man to say that a black man is selling out. And it's I understand that in principle, but if you take a check from the Pepsi Corporation, you're taking a check from the Pepsi Corporation, right? What we need is critical thinking. We need this dialectical thinking. We need to know that two things can be true at once. Kendrick can be a hero of the people and one of the greatest Americans who's ever lived and a champion of civil rights and a mega genius on the highest level at the peak of his career and power. And he sold out to Gatorade and sold one of his best songs off one of his best albums to sell sugary electrolyte water, right? But that's the issue, is we're in this place where it's you with us or you're against us. If you're not with me, you're my enemy, friend or foe. We need more imperfect allyship. We need that 90%. And that's the difficulty, is that all this is online. And she even talks about how difficult it is to do it online. But what I would like to do is I want to practice what she preaches. I want to call someone in who I'm tempted to call out. Okay? So this is to you, Friday Ricky Dread, a YouTuber who has an excellent channel called We Love Hip Hop. He's a guy out of Toronto who does a lot of great work with Canadian rap. I've always treated him with respect. I've defended him in the comment section when people would attack him because he would defend Drake, and I always thought he was really brave to show up on Culture United and sort of be the voice of people who support Drake. I've had some chats with him on DM, okay? And I don't know, last week he accused me of being a coward for not attacking Fantano because, quote, I would not go against my white brethren. He didn't know my name. He made fun of my view count. It was bad. It was like, I was watching, I was like, what the fuck, man? What's the fuck me for? Like, I always thought we were cool, And so part of me wants to call him out and just be like, how dare you? But man, he's not my problem. He works for hip hop. He does the goddamn work. He goes out all over Ontario and he works as hard as he can. He has an amazingly inspirational story, which I suggest you watch. He does really important work, okay? And I'm watching him get kind of pulled in to the Dracosphere, the defending Dracosphere. I see him siding with What's the Dirt. I see him getting more and more into this kind of conspiratorial thinking. Okay, so he insulted my channel and my work and implied that I'm a racist, but I'm still going to say, hey man, let's work together. Let's be together. We have way more in common than we have against each other, okay? I'm going to quote Loretta one more time. I'm sorry, Dr. Ross. Calling in considers whether we can connect with others before we start shouting them down. Consider whether we can connect with others before we start shouting them down. Can I connect with Friday Ricky Dread before shouting him down? You're damn straight I can. We've appeared on like 3 Culture Uniteds together. You're damn straight we can. It allows us to reach each other's people as people, to breathe a little easier, and ultimately to get things done. Calling in builds bridges instead of burning them down so that we might walk together along the path towards collective liberation. So I'm not asking Friday Ricky Dread to join my side and start attacking Drake. But I am calling him in to stop attacking Culture United. To stop attacking, people with whom he's been in community, To consider on his side whether or not we can connect. And not, fall prey to this, belief that to attack people who dislike Drake is somehow a virtuous thing to do. Anyways, was that too goofy? I don't know. I'm just giving it a shot. Right? Because that's someone I feel like I can call in. Hell, I'm tempted to try to call in What's the Dirt? Matthew from What's the Dirt? Because the thing is, it's dehumanizing. I watched an hour-long podcast he did this morning, where he talks about his bipolar with someone who's an expert in bipolar. And it humanizes the hell out of a guy who's very hard to humanize, a guy who I've really disliked and thrown subs at, made videos about, all that stuff. But man, that's really tough. It's really tough. Bipolar is really tough. That's a serious disease, okay? It should be treated as seriously as leukemia, okay? You shouldn't laugh at someone for having leukemia. You shouldn't laugh at someone for being bipolar, So I don't know. He seems more far gone, but I don't know. That's the issue. We got to humanize each other whenever we can. But this is what's tricky. Is that really what's happening though is that the sort of two different divides, right? The kind of the left and right divide that spreads from The Last Jedi to Kendrick and Drake to Sydney Sweeney's underpants, okay? Is that like we all end up sort of calling each other hypocrites, and we are all hypocrites, but being a hypocrite, it doesn't make you the same as the person who you're accusing, you know? And it's really a question of power and hypocrisy. And that's the question, is like, how much power do the people who are using these tactics have? So I've done two: deny and attack. And then there's just reverse victim and offender. That's the final step. I'm quoting here from the website. The final step of this twisted manipulation tactic is for the abuser to secure the title of victim and position the accuser as the offender. They might contend that the accuser has some vendetta to destroy them. They might say the accuser is lying in order to turn people against the abuser to become more popular, take away their children, or receive a larger divorce settlement. The abuser might claim they are a victim of the system. I've got to say that again. The abuser might claim they're a victim of the system. They might use their socioeconomic standing, race, or gender to support their claim. All the while, the accuser's actual accusations overshadowed, and the survivor will end up spending more time. The accuser will end up spending more time trying to defend their reputation than receiving help for the abuse. This is how it goes. Trump is a victim of a witch hunt of the deep state. Drake is a victim of the record industry while also being its greatest success story. But he's a victim of the record industry. He's a victim of false accusations of sexual impropriety. He's a victim. Academic in specific, but the Drake stan, the right-wing hip-hop fans, okay? The sort of the right wing of the hip hop commentary sphere, the anti hip hop channels, are victims of elitism, of being treated poorly, of being not invited to participate in conversations that they are actively against. They are victims of racism because some members of a hip hop panel show did not call out one of their colleagues for something that they said 10 years ago. Okay? That's the problem. The problem? The victims of racism in hip-hop commentary are the people who want other people to condemn what someone else said 10 years ago. That's the problem. I'd like to go back to my too short didn't read. Don't let bad faith actors frame the debate and distract us from the real issues. Because what do we end up with? We end up with the world that we're in, where we got Epstein troopers invading D.C. to distract from Epstein. We've got Obama. Maybe we'll end up getting jailed. He really might end up getting jailed. Everybody. The best president of my lifetime. I'm still a very imperfect president. It's damning with faint praise saying someone is the best president of my lifetime. I guess I was alive during Jimmy Carter. So I don't know. But anyways, the Epstein list is never getting revealed. It will never get revealed. Kendrick might get taken down by the court of public opinion. Now that the court order is talking about whether or not because Drake is trying to argue that UMG uses robots to promote a song that he perceives of as slander, we are now going to be thrown into a debate about whether or not Kendrick hit Whitney. That is going to be a huge topic of debate. It's shifting. It is Darvo, distract, attack, reverse, victim, and offender. All of a sudden, that's going to be the discussion. And what's going to end up happening? UMG is going to settle. They're going to settle with Drake, just like CBS settled with Trump. The success, the victory, the symbolic victory of Kendrick and therefore of hip-hop over Drake and therefore the anti-hip-hop forces in hip-hop culture will be undercut. Black excellence, to a certain extent, will be denied. And I don't know. Will we successfully make it that Fantano is uncomfortable or blackballed from speaking on black culture? Will we succeed in having the power of that side of hip hop commentary diminished because it does not wholeheartedly try to exile somebody who is an imperfect ally? Is that the world that we want? Do we want, when they Darvo, to say, okay, good? We don't know who the victims and the offenders even are. So anyways, let's see how my babies are doing. I'm going to get... Oh, good. She's just waking up. She isn't crying. So there we go. What do you think of this whole little idea here? I don't know. This is a might delete later. I don't even know if I'm going to release it. But I just had all these thoughts in my head, and I wanted to get them out. So in conclusion, if possible, choose love and call in. If that's not possible, stay focused on who the real abusers are. All right. Until next time, there's the camera.